And a very good morning to you. This is the Talk of the Town. Now then, our guest this morning is Mr. Chevaan Daniel. Very good morning to you, Mr. Chevaan Daniel.
Good morning, Faraz.
Yes, Miss Chevaan Daniel is also my boss, by the way, just in case you're wondering. The Mr. bit, you know. But anyway, Chevaan, you know this gum matter, you all have been doing loads and loads of stuff over the years, and especially so in the recent past, when times have been very challenging. Tell me about what you're doing, like, sort of most recently. What's exciting going on there?
Thank you, Faraz. Well, Gamadha has been incredibly successful, mostly due to the support of ordinary Sri Lankans, so that must be said at the very outset. And we've been blessed with the opportunity to serve Sri Lankan communities across different parts of the island. And the most recent was the opening of a bridge in a very, very rural part of Mahiyangana, which several children had been washed away during the rainy season particularly. And this bridge will now connect several villages and make life a lot easier. So that's just one example in the recent past. But we've been able to build bridges, roads, and particularly water purification units in many parts of the country. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Really, what government is doing is building bridges over misery and poverty and people's hardship. Isn't that really what government is doing?
Yes, well, it's also an illustration of the giving hearts of Sri Lankan people. Most of the donors for Gamadha are people who already have very little, and also people who have plenty and excess are very happy to support Gamadha as well. So it really is an illustration, a reflection of that Sri Lankan philosophy of the dana. You know, we like to give, we like to help each other. We might also like to tear each other apart, but at the same time, we have something very special in which we like to help people, particularly those who are less fortunate and those in need.
So really, Chevaan, these are sort of de facto social contracts.
Yes, I think it's an important point you raise for us, in the sense that the agreement between, for example, a government or governance itself and the people must be understood in a very philosophical sense almost. So the people decide and choose to hand over their sovereignty to a set of rulers through a vote with the expectation that their needs would be met. This is the basic tenet or the philosophy of democratic politics. And this is what then gives birth to institutions like a parliament and the constitution. So the philosophy that holds all of these institutions up is, in fact, the social contract, famously articulated in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's book. So when that contract, just as in any contract, ends from one side of the other, well then so does the contract and all of its conditions. So really, when the people hand over their sovereignty to set of rulers, the expectation is that the rulers would then take care of their most basic needs, in the least. For example, food, water, a place to live, sense of hope for the future, and medicine for the various ailments, etc. But today, mostly in rural Sri Lanka and increasingly in urban parts as well, even these basic needs are obviously not being met. So the question is, does that social contract then exist? So it is a question that I think all Sri Lankans must somehow think about very, very prudently and deeply, because it ultimately impacts the future of our democracy.
So basically, I'd venture to say that the social contract between the trustees, let's call them the politicians, they're actually trustees. And that came to an end at some point, because we then saw the people on the road, in the form of Aragale, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically what happens when the people come to the realization that the people that they've placed their trust in have let them down and not held their end of the deal up. So it's not enough for any politician to say, oh, you've voted me in, I'm in parliament, or I'm in a certain position, so therefore I get to do and say and act in any way I want. There is responsibility that goes the other way as well, where the obligation of that politician or the ruler is to take care of the needs of the people. So if those needs are not being met, then the agreement ends. This is the philosophy of politics, the most basic philosophy. And it's unlike perhaps the medieval times, when that sovereignty or that power came from God. God bestowed upon the monarch the power to rule over the people. That's not a democracy. A democracy is where the power comes from the people, and the people then willingly hand it over to rulers so that they might then take care of the public.
But when they're let down, the social contract's all torn up, and the people have nothing else to do.
This is the basic of the base. This is the very basic philosophy of democratic politics. There is no democracy. There is no constitution. There is no parliament. There is no president. There can be no cabinet of ministers without a deep and profound understanding of the social contract.
Chevaan Daniel, thank you very much for being on the Talk of the Town, and it's now back to studio with Dom and Asanka.
Thank you, Faraz.